Hello, this is week 14, and this week we are going to work on how to help children who have been exposed to trauma become competent students in our classroom and become successful students. So let me go ahead and share the screen so we're all on the same page here. Okay, so the reading is short and sweet this week. There's really not a whole lot to it. It's 2 pages. I just wanted you to get this quick overview of trauma because this is just filled with wonderful websites that you can go to and learn more about what this could look like, but also what you could do to help children who've been exposed to trauma. Let me just pull the statistics up. It is just so amazing how many children in our classrooms have been exposed to trauma. When you think this, 60% of adults report experiencing abuse or other difficult family circumstances during childhood, which is a form of trauma. And you can read this on your own, but it's amazing to look at these statistics. Statistics tell us that 1 out of every 4 children attending school has been exposed to a traumatic event, and it can certainly have a big impact on their behavior in your classroom. This is a really good example of a school that has a trauma-informed approach to the classroom. So just take a few minutes and take a look at that. During the first year of life, children really do create a model of their world and how to interact with their world. They create a model for themselves of their value, which is their self-esteem. This is when they begin to develop a little bit of self-confidence in their ability to handle situations. And this is also when they develop trust. So when children have things happen in their lives that interrupt those processes, then that will have an effect on their interactions for the rest of their lives. It definitely affects the relationship between the teacher and the student when you have a child who has experienced an interruption in establishing these very important items. Sometimes you have a child that actually will increase their challenging behaviors when they get to your classroom, which is really the opposite of what you would expect, because when a teacher is very loving and kind and supportive of a student, you would assume that the student would respond with the same kind of behavior, some nice behavior, lack of challenges, and that kind of thing. That's not what happens in many situations. Many times the child's behavior becomes worse because they have been taught that they are unlovable. They're trying to prove that they are unlovable by becoming even more of a challenge. So this is something that teachers have to overcome with some strategies. Also, statistics tell us that children exposed to chronic violence in the home, abuse, neglect, and trauma are developmentally about half of their chronological age. So think about that when you look at the behavior that you see in your classroom. Is that behavior symptomatic of a much younger child? That could very well be due to the fact that they have been traumatized. Sensory processing is oftentimes affected by trauma, particularly when the trauma took place prenatally, such as by the mother's ingestion of drugs, alcohol, other toxic substances that affected the brain. So you may hear school counselors talk about a survey called the ACE survey. This is what it is. It's called ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences. And it's really a series of questions, and it's how you respond to those questions that gives you an ACE score. So the questions are right here. It has to do with how you were treated in the household. You can go ahead and take this test for yourself and see how you score. I'll just let you read through it. You don't need me reading it to you. This PowerPoint is in Blackboard. All right. So after you score yourself, you will see a higher score, 4+, indicates a higher risk for both health and social problems later in life. And these are some of the social problems that statistically may occur at a greater frequency. However, there are many things you can do to help children overcome some of these issues. These are called positive protective factors. And really the strongest protective factor for the child is a good relationship with a responsive adult. That could be you. A predictable, caring environment. That's your classroom. Participation in community traditions, you know, those wonderful events that happen that are kind of predictable. Thanksgiving, holiday celebrations, perhaps, whatever kinds of community traditions. And this can be just in your classroom traditions that you can use. That would be wonderful. Feeling a sense of belonging in school. Absolutely, you can accomplish that by assigning jobs in your classroom and establishing a strong sense of classroom community and feeling supported by friends. Again, if you work very hard at establishing good relationship amongst the students in your classroom, this goes a long way to supporting children who have experienced trauma. So what can teachers do? Well, one of the things they can do is create a low sensory load environment, because many times children who've been exposed to trauma have had a really strong sensory overload. Neutral colors come in mind, no bright oranges and hot pinks and turquoises. No more than 2/3 of the walls covered in pictures and posters. You know, so many times you go into elementary or early childhood classrooms and they blast at you. There's not an inch of free space. It's overwhelming to pretty much everybody. So tone it down. Subtle patterns, natural materials, some quiet spaces, and pleasant aromas. I know there's a current ban on having Scentsy pots and whatnot in the classroom. However, there's nothing wrong with just a little bit of room spray to make it smell nice. Make the first day better. This can be extremely stressful for children who've experienced trauma and don't like change. Get down to their eye level when you meet them. Don't touch them. Don't even pat them on the back. Ask permission if you need to touch them. Let me show you how we do things. That's a great way to get them started because they won't know. Give them a clue what you want them to do in the classroom. That's for everybody, really. You might assign them a buddy and teach them how to be part of the group. Assign children to groups. Don't let them group themselves because you don't want to leave anyone out. Establish routines and transitions. Model the routines rather than simply telling, because they may not be processing real well. So get up and show them how you want them to do it. Break tasks into smaller steps. You might want to have photographs of each step or clip art. Minimize transitions. Transitions are bad. Stay close to them. Have that proximity. Even if you just stand near them, you don't have to be right next to them, but stand close enough so they can see you. Make eye contact. Give them warnings when it's almost time for centers to be over or it's almost time to clean up to go to lunch. Give them some warnings. You might let them hold a transitional object like a bear or, a talking stick, whatever it is that you have in your classroom, that there may be something physical that they need to hold on to during transition. Plan for group times. If you know that that particular child who's had a lot of trauma has difficulty with group time, make sure you have a carpet square for him or her to sit on. That's their personal private space, that they will not be bothered by anybody. They may actually need like a hula hoop, a plastic hoop around their carpet space to further delineate what their area is. They might need a therapy ball to sit on, or a pillow or a towel with which to cover their lap, or just to roll up and snuggle. And I've had children that really prefer to sit in something, so you might provide them with a clothes basket or something like that. If children absolutely have to have their hands moving all the time, give them a fidget to work with, or a stuffed animal to squeeze and hold on to. If you have children that blurt out nonstop, practice those conversational skills for the group. You might pass along a talking stick when you've got the stick, it's your turn. You might hand out 3 answer tickets, and every time you give your answer, then you put 1 ticket into the basket in the middle of the group. Or put everyone's name on a popsicle stick and pull out the names as you go along, so everyone has a turn. Or you might just say, if you know the answer to this, put your thumb up. Or you could have individual whiteboards for children and have them draw the answer or write the answer and hold it up. Just some examples of how you can stop blurting. Teach emotional literacy. You know, this is good for everybody, but certainly vital for children who have experienced a lot of trauma. Talk about feelings, have pictures of feelings, play games about feelings. Use bingo is a great way. They have feelings bingo. It's important to find out what is the child's strength instead of just focusing on, what they are having difficulty with. So find out, they may have difficulty with reading and writing, but they might be a whiz at math. So maybe that child can be someone that helps others with their math. That would be a great self-confidence booster. Give them some choice. Everyone likes a little bit of choice, but it's really important for this group because they really have a need for control, because they have so little control in their own lives. Ask, what do you want to do first, the math page or your journal? I mean, obviously they have to do them both, but give them control over what comes first. If they've made a huge mess on the floor, okay. Do you want to pick up the Legos before or after we have snack? There's no doubt you're going to pick them up, but before or after is fine. It's a choice. Teach them how to change the channel, like we do with our remote control. Sometimes we get so worked up about something, it's important to refocus. So teach refocusing. They're called cognitive distractions or thought breaks. You might have a listening center for them to go to, put headphones on just with a calm story or music. You might have Where's Waldo in there, just turn a few pages and find Waldo. You might do Mad Libs or trivia for older children. This is just get your mind off of whatever is causing this immediate problem, to calm for a few minutes. And, if you have to give them a critique, you have to be really thoughtful on how you present that, because a lot of traumatized students look at through the lens of negativity. And so if you say, please fix this sentence because they didn't have a capital and a period, then what the student actually hears is, you are so stupid. Or they may say, she screamed at me, when you said it in a very calm voice. So it's important that you kind of get past their own negative image of themselves. So if you give them a critique, smile at them and have something positive to say about what they did. Like, I really like how you wrote your letters here. I think your A's and your T's are just great. With a smile on your face, something positive, and then but remember, you need to have a capital at the beginning of your name and a period at the end of the sentence, that kind of thing. But it's kind of how you present it, because children that have been traumatized are so used to looking at themselves negatively. And then it's really important to, if they've created some kind of an issue and the behavior is inappropriate, there should be natural consequences. Not, okay, you didn't pick up your mess off the floor when I told you to, so 3 hours from now, when we go to recess, you're going to have to sit down next to me instead of playing. That's not a natural consequence. All right. And then if you know that there are certain situations that are going to trigger an outburst, you can predict it already, then please stop that if you can prevent it. For instance, if you know that Junior, who's been highly traumatized, always starts to scream and flail around when loud noises happen. Well, by golly, if you know there's going to be a fire drill, say something. I would whisper in his ear. I'd say, Junior, sometime this morning, you're going to hear that loud bell go off. And it's just a fire drill. It's totally okay. You know exactly what we're going to do, right? That can make all the difference. All the difference. Allow them a little control so that they can prepare themselves. And a lot of times children will have a meltdown and you'll hear, the work's just too hard. I can't do it. Well, you may just have to break it down into smaller steps. They may not be able to do it that day for 10 problems, but how about if we do it for 2? And I'll help you with the first one, and let's see how you do after that. Or do one problem, take a 10-minute break, do something else, and then come back and do it. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time and encouragement, because they do get easily overwhelmed. And all very young children up until the age of 9 really have a problem with intentionality. This goes for all kids. Up until then, they still often view any accident as they did it on purpose. That's what you hear all the time when you know that so-and-so had their arms full, didn't see something and tripped and flew right into them. They didn't do it on purpose, okay? But that's not how it was interpreted. So sometimes when children have been exposed to trauma, this intentionality issue extends way past 8 or 9 years of age. This is when you need to just sit down with them and say, it was an accident, but I understand that sometimes accidents still feel like they happened on purpose. Let's both of us sit down and just practice some calm breathing exercises, just you and I. But just expect children who've experienced trauma to really still see a lot of negative things as happening on purpose to them. And I just want to introduce you to this book. This is Dr. Sorrell's book, Reaching and Teaching Children Exposed to Trauma. It is absolutely a wonderful resource. And if you work with children in trauma, I highly recommend that you purchase it for yourself, because I think you would get a lot out of it. Okay, so this week, you are going to, let me pull up this assignment here. you have a situation that you're going to analyze is reaching Andrew. And poor old Andrew is really having difficulty in Mrs. Smith's classroom. He's aggressive, he's hitting, he tells her no, he screams. And Andrew is 6. He is in 1st grade. He has experienced a lot of trauma in his classroom. He has been through a parental divorce. He experiences poverty, and he has experienced sexual abuse. His mother is struggling as a single parent and is a survivor of child abuse herself. So I want you to analyze this and identify some strategies that Mrs. Smith, the teacher, could implement in order to help Andrew develop a sense of safety and trust in her classroom. Remember, those are really important. And when a child is able to have that in their classroom, it does give them a real boost of resilience and helps them to become successful despite everything that's happened. Okay. If you have any questions about what we're going to do this week, please make sure you contact me and I'll be happy to set up a Zoom. We do not have any assignments for the week after this because that we're off for Thanksgiving week. So I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'll see you back here on November the 29th. Okay, bye-bye.